The lead developer of the game White love song, Ian, passionately kisses Lola, the production management manager. Kelly silently stands nearby and watches what is happening with contempt. An idea comes to the girl's head. She takes out her phone and starts taking pictures. At that moment, her lovers notice her. Kelly, one of the investors, says with a chuckle that she seems to have forgotten to turn off the flash. As she leaves, the girl says that with the help of these photographs, she can rid the company of young people. Ian rushes after Kelly and declares that he loves her, begging her to give him one last chance. Kelly, with tears in her eyes, replies that the guy deceived her, and there is no question of any last chance, and she really hopes that the couple will lose their jobs. Lola is desperate and thinks that if she loses her job, her financial well-being will collapse. The girl runs after Kelly and, having caught up, pushes her with all her might, screaming that she must die. Kelly, who did not expect the attack, flies straight into the table, next to which there are damaged wires. The girl catches the extension cord with her heel and falls head first onto the exposed wire. Ian is horrified, and Lola says with a grin that if Kelly dies, then no one will know anything. The girl opens her eyes, grabs her head, which is bursting with pain, and tries to understand what happened to her. Suddenly, the girl is very clearly hugged by a young man. She tries to push him away and asks in amazement who he is. The man looks tenderly at the girl and asks if his dear Catherine really doesn't want to play with him anymore. Kelly looks in amazement at the familiar interior, the man's surprisingly familiar face, and the name he calls her. Suddenly, the girl realizes that, obviously, she has become the main villain of her own game, Catherine. Kelly works for a game company, but she was betrayed by her lover and is now in her own game, White Song of Love. According to the plot, Catherine seduced the king and killed the queen, but Princess Eve, with the help of Lucifer and Samuel, will definitely take revenge on the villainess. Kelly realizes that everything that is happening is simply ridiculous, and she must find a way to get out of the game. The girl frantically thinks that she can kill a couple of characters and see what happens, because in any case, in the finale, Catherine must die. The king says that the girl has nothing to worry about. As soon as the queen is finished, they can always be together. Kelly remembers that in this storyline, Princess Eva is supposed to catch her aunt and father right now. The girl turns away from the man and states that they shouldn't continue because Princess Eva might find them. At this moment, the doors to the chambers open, and a young princess runs into the room. The girl looks in horror at the opening scene and furiously asks how her aunt and father can do this. The king coldly notices that his daughter has completely forgotten about etiquette and asks why she dared to come in without knocking. Catherine takes the man by the hand and notices that there is no point in hiding, and in fact, she and the king love each other. Eva presses her hands to her face and asks if her aunt loves her more than anyone. The princess looks at her aunt and asks with tears in her eyes how she could do this to her mother and her sister. Catherine mockingly asks in response whether sisters can't do the same thing. Enraged, Eva rushes at Catherine, intending to knock her down. The king covers the woman and tells his daughter not to forget that her mother went to prison because she attempted to assassinate him. Eva shouts that this is simply impossible. Mother was framed, and father should not listen to the villain. The king becomes furious and orders his daughter to shut up. Her mother is in prison, stripped of her title, and she is no longer queen. The man declares that he will marry Catherine and make her queen, and the girl should get used to this. In tears, the princess declares that this will never happen. There is only one queen, and that is her mother. Catherine listens to the quarrel and thinks that she doesn't want to become queen at all. It's a shame they didn't ask her about it. The heroine calms the king, notes that he should not shout at his daughter. They should talk in private. Catherine takes her leave, terrified of what she has done and realizing that she needs to hurry. The girl remembers that in the original story, Catherine dies tragically at the hands of Lucifer. The heroine resolutely clenches her hand into a fist and thinks about summoning the demon in advance. While performing the ritual, Catherine remembers that in the game, the princess accidentally wakes up Lucifer by dropping a candle. The flame burns the magic circle, and the true devil Lucifer appears before the woman. The demon looks at Catherine and declares that since she woke him up, he will fulfill her wish. The girl screams joyfully. Since the devil has appeared, it means she is doing everything right. Without fear, Catherine approaches Lucifer and without wasting time tells him to kill her quickly. The girl is sure that she can only get out of the game by going through the storyline, so she asks the perplexed Lucifer to use his dark power and kill her. The devil squeezes Catherine's throat and furiously asks who she is and how she learned about his power. Catherine thinks with pity that she cannot tell the demon that the game was made according to her model, which is why she is aware of all the events. The girl declares that Lucifer himself knows that he must do this. The man raises his hand and summons the devil's fire. Catherine watches the devil with satisfaction. The faster he kills her, the faster she can return to reality. Suddenly, the girl remembers that there is a bug in the game, and if the order of Catherine's death is not followed, then she will return to the original place, her boudoir. A moment later, Catherine finds herself in her room and with bewilderment realizes that she is sitting on a demon who for some reason ended up with her. The devil looks at the girl in surprise and asks how she knows him and why she sat on him. Catherine ponders with bewilderment that the demon is truly handsome, worthy of a royal place. Suddenly, Lucifer explodes and declares that the girl must get off him immediately, and no one has the right to talk to him in such a tone. Ekaterina is thinking about the fact that she shouldn't show her knowledge to the characters in the game. Lucifer says that since the girl called him, he will fulfill her wish. Turning around, Catherine realizes that, having returned to her boudoir, the demon forgot about what happened in the church. Suddenly, the girl receives a system notification that if her player does not find the right way to die, he will not be able to leave here. Catherine thinks that most likely she will die at the hands of Lucifer on her wedding day, which means she needs to lead the princess to the secret room. The girl decides that Lucifer needs to be brought back, grabs the man by the hand and tells him to go back. The demon intercepts the hand and notices that Catherine is very brave if she wants him to return back to the cage. The girl knows how to make the devil obedient and asks if he wants to get rid of the oppression of dark forces. Lucifer is surprised, and the girl declares that she can break the seal and free him from the curse. One day, the father rebelled against the man and sealed him in darkness forever. To return, Lucifer absorbed many souls, which turned him into a demon. On the way to church, Catherine remembers that in order to defeat her aunt, Eve entered into an agreement with Lucifer. The princess watching Catherine hears her say that the demon manipulated her, made her his slave, but was never able to get her soul. Suddenly, the girl remembers the ring and hastily takes it off her finger. Eva sees the ring and remembers that this is the only thing that connected her bright mother with Catherine. The demon looks at the ring in surprise, and the girl assures that this particular thing will help free him. Lucifer pins the girl against the wall and says that he can follow her, but wants to know what the girl's true goal is. Realizing that if she tells the truth, the game will break again, Catherine declares that she wants to rule the kingdom. Eva grinds her teeth with rage. It turns out that she was right about everything. Unable to bear it, the princess runs out and shouts that her aunt not only framed her sister, but also wants to take the throne, and she will tell everything to her father. Catherine is surprised that Eve is here. If she finds out about the devil, she will not sign a contract with him. The girl turns to the princess and declares that the king trusts her completely and will not send her to execution. Trying to anger Eva more, the uncle declares that the girl is just a dummy and can only wander aimlessly around the castle. Catherine looks arrogantly at the princess, trying to anger her even more. Eva is amazed at her aunt's impudence, swings a candlestick at her and shouts that she will kill her. Catherine thinks with satisfaction that she will finally be able to return home. But suddenly Lucifer closes the girl and tells Eve that if she dares to touch her, he will kill her. The man raises his hand and dark magic begins to flow through his fingers. Taking the form of a snake, the demonic force wraps itself around the princess's neck and begins to choke her. Catherine realizes that if Eve dies, she will never get out of the game and orders the demon to stop immediately. The snake disappears. The girl falls to the floor, but suddenly everything around her lights up with a bright light. Lucifer looks at Eve in amazement and does not understand where the power of the Holy Father comes from in her. Many years ago, the Holy Father told the boy that as long as his heart and mind preached the truth, he would always be welcome in the kingdom of God. The boy trustingly confesses to the Holy Father that he respects God, but wants to study science. the Holy Father assures that all village residents can engage in science and asks the boy to show him those who are thinking about it. The boy declares that the Holy Father is very kind, and he will gladly fulfill his request. After a while, a whole army led by the Holy Father came to the village. The man with contempt gives the order to kill all the pagans who betrayed the light. A boy hides behind a haystack, watching in horror as the inhabitants of his village are dealt with. Lucifer sees a trail of light and realizes with rage that it all has something to do with his old enemy. The demon rushes at Eve and shouts that the princess is on the side of the Holy Father and bows before him. Realizing that Catherine's entire plan is crumbling, the girl rushes at Lucifer and demands to release the princess. The man turns around sharply and declares that he is the devil himself, and no person can interfere in his affairs. Catherine calmly notes that Eve is needed to remove the seal, and if the demon kills her, he will be swallowed up by darkness forever. Eve screams in horror that her aunt has conspired with dark forces to kill her. The princess jumps to her feet, runs, and shouts that she will tell her father everything. Ekaterina angrily thinks that now Eva will never sign the contract, and it is useless to try to fix anything. The girl remembers that Lucifer had the skill of teleportation and demands to immediately return her to her chambers. A couple of moments later, the devil lands in the room with Catherine in his arms. Suddenly, the man stumbles. The girl falls on the bed and he falls on top of her. Embarrassed, the devil sits down abruptly and says that it is not his fault. Catherine is simply too heavy. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door, and a voice from behind the door reports that the father has come to see the lady. The father, who is also the Duke of Bella, comes into the room and wonders what Catherine is doing. The girl slams the closet door forcefully and says that she is cleaning up the mess. The Duke advises that this work be left to the servants, because the girl has more important things to do. Catherine looks with amazement at the iris flower in the man's hands. This flower symbolizes the status of the queen and is a sign of identity. The Duke reasons that the queen is in prison and the king's marital status is now in question. But today the man understood everything. Looking intently at the girl, the father says that the king loves her no less than his sister. The Duke hands the flower to Catherine and declares that her time has come to serve the family. The man invites the girl to stand next to the king and take the place of her sister, and the girl realizes how cunning he is. Eva tells her father about the incident and says that collusion with dark forces is a criminal offense. The father looks at his daughter doubtfully and asks if she is sure that Catherine seduced someone. Turning to the guards, the king orders to go to the church and immediately bring Madame Catherine. The man orders the other knights to send a group of people to Duke Bell's house to check if Catherine is there. Annoyed, the princess thinks that her father trusts her aunt more than his own daughter. The returning knight reports that Lady Catherine has been found in her chambers in the house of Duke Bell. Eva immediately turns to her father and assures him that she is not deceiving him. Catherine and the Duke respectfully bow and greet His Highness. The girl states that she heard that she was accused of conspiring with dark forces, but all this time she was in her father's house. Eva shouts that her aunt is lying. Yesterday she saw a girl with a man in a dark cloak, and they wanted to kill her. The Duke asks the princess not to make false statements, since it is at least an hour's drive from the church to the residence. Eva says with tears that most likely that man, with the help of dark magic, helped Catherine return to her home so quickly. Catherine also begins to cry and asks the king whether the princess is not entitled to punishment for slander. The father turns to his daughter and states that Catherine has witnesses that she was at home, so the matter is over. Suddenly, Eve hands her father a ring and says that she found it in the church and needs to ask the Holy Father to check it for dark magic. Catherine realizes with annoyance that in all the fuss she completely forgot about the ring. The king calls the Holy Father and asks him to check the princess's guess. The Overlord says that the trace of light that the priest possesses can detect the trace of dark magic. The Holy Father bows and replies that the king is right. His power is capable of sensing a small part of dark magic. Catherine watches the priest take the ring and realizes that if he is on the side of the princess, then now he will reveal it. Eva looks at her aunt with hatred and thinks that if the Holy Father confirms the presence of dark forces, then she will no longer be able to escape. The princess hopes that her mother's suffering will return to the villain, and she will pay for everything she has done. The Holy Father declares that he has studied the ring and can say with confidence that it does not contain any dark forces. Eva screams in horror. She doesn't understand how this is possible because she saw everything with her own eyes. The princess attacks Catherine, accusing her of somehow enchanting the ring. The girl understands that Lucifer disobeyed her and did not fill the ring with dark power. In future, she must be more careful with him. With an innocent look, Catherine declares that she was in her chambers and has no idea what Eva is accusing her of. Suddenly, the girl asks what the princess herself was doing so late in the church. The confused princess mutters that she was looking for one thing in the church that she lost there in the morning. The girl wonders what kind of thing it is that the princess personally went to look for it. Suddenly, the king slams his fist on the chair and orders Eve to immediately tell her what she did in the church. The girl admits that she wanted to find evidence that her mother did not resort to the help of dark forces. The king, furious, orders to stop justifying the woman who attempted on his life. The king stands up and declares that he is disappointed, and from that day on, the princess is forbidden to leave her chambers. Catherine looks at Eve and feels pity, even though they are enemies. She is not to blame for anything, and perhaps she should be helped. The girl turns her face distorted with anger to her aunt and declares that she will make her pay for everything. The girl receives a message from the system that they have found a new branch leading to death. The main character's bitterness is 5%. The maid sets the table in the chambers of the punished princess and wishes her bon appetit. An angry Eva knocks over the plates and shouts that just because she was locked out does not give the maid the right to mock her. The second and third princesses enter the chambers and look at their sister reproachfully. The second princess says with a grin that she was worried about her sister, so she ordered a special dinner to be prepared for her. The third princess sarcastically remarks that Eva has done something wrong to the king, and now everyone is running away from her like scalded people. Eva screams in rage that she will not allow her sisters to mock her. As soon as her mother is acquitted, she will again become the king's favorite daughter. The second princess says that her sister is just a fool if she expects her mother to be released from prison. Eva rushes at her sister and declares that she should have her tongue torn out for such words. The third sister, taking advantage of the fact that Eva was distracted, pushes her with all her might, and the girl falls to the floor. The second princess steps on the girl's hand with her heel and says that she should not forget the situation she is in now. Suddenly, Catherine enters the room and coldly asks what is going on here. The girls rush towards the villainess, and the second princess reports that they have decided to teach stupid Eva a lesson. Catherine looks at the girls in amazement and does not understand who they are. Judging by their clothes and character, they are unimportant characters. Angry Eva points her finger at her aunt and shouts that all the problems are because of her. The princess accuses Catherine of being locked up because of her, and she hopes that sooner or later she will be able to kill her. The girl stumbles and begins to fall, but at that moment a young man flies up with lightning speed and picks up Eve. The young man turns to Catherine and angrily orders not to touch the princess. Without waiting for an answer, the knight asks the lady to be merciful and leave Princess Eva alone. Catherine realizes with annoyance that in front of her is one of the main characters, Sir Alice, the princess's faithful knight. The girl asks in amazement why she should leave Eve alone and what exactly she did wrong just now. Alice angrily reports that he saw with his own eyes how Catherine pushed the princess. The girl notices that it was Eve who was about to attack her, but tripped over her dress. The knight quietly asks the princess if this is true, to which the girl nods in the affirmative. Eva says that her aunt seduced her father, locked her here, but that's not enough for her. Now she sent her sisters to kill her. The princess tells Alice that Catherine has entered into a conspiracy with a follower of dark forces and begs the knight to help her. The young man draws his sword and declares that Catherine not only raised her hand against the princess, but also betrayed God, and now he is obliged to deal with her. Suddenly, a portal opens and Lucifer appears in the room, shouting that no one dares touch his woman. The demon touches the sword, which immediately turns to dust, and notices that the guy does not know how to handle weapons at all. The devil grabs Alice by the neck and threateningly says that he does not dare touch Catherine. The knight jumps aside and in fear asks who this is and why he used dark powers. The devil proudly announces that he will not hide his name and says that he is the demon, Lucifer. The young man says in horror that the princess was right in everything, and Catherine is really a villain. Alice rushes with a sword at Lucifer, but he easily stops the weapon with his hand. The stunned young man falls to the floor and says that he will report everything to the Holy Father. Lucifer attacks the knight and shouts that if the guy is a disciple of the Holy Father, then he will not live. Catherine tries to stop Lucifer, thinking that now the main characters will simply kill each other. Lucifer asks the girl to name at least one reason why he should not kill the knight, but he replies that in this way he will not be able to gain the trust of the princess. Catherine whispers in Lucifer's ear that without the princess's help, he will not be able to break the seal. The devil agrees with the girl, but advises her not to deceive him. Lucifer begins to cast a spell to erase the memories of everyone who saw him. The Holy Father enters the room and asks in amazement what is happening here. Alice is lying on the floor. Ekaterina is lying on him. The others are also unconscious. The girl sits down, puts her hand to her head, and says that someone attacked them with magic. The Holy Father wonders whether Lucifer could be the attacker, but he is securely locked, just in case the man decides to check the room and the seal. Eva comes to her senses, says that she has a headache, and asks what happened to them. The princess notices the Holy Father and asks hopefully if there is any news about her mother. Sighing, the man says that the king was merciful and allowed a meeting with one person. Eva joyfully says that she really wants to see her mother, but the Holy Father said that the queen did not demand her. Turning to Catherine, the priest invites her to follow him. The Holy Father says that the queen is outside the door. The girl thanks him for seeing her off. Following the priest, Catherine does not understand why her sisters suddenly wanted to see her. Noticing Lucifer, the girl convincingly says that he should hide, especially when the Holy Father is nearby. Catherine assures the demon that now is not the time to show her strength. The girl reminds that the devil's seal has not yet been removed. It has only weakened. Lucifer hides in the girl's hair, but she says that it is not enough to simply shrink. You need to completely hide the dark forces. The devil grumbles with displeasure, but understands that the girl is right. It is not yet time to confront the Holy Father. The queen diligently writes something, and without raising it, states the fact that her sister has come. Catherine reflects that two sisters are fighting for one man, and she, as an observer, is downright awkward to be here. Ekaterina decisively approaches her sister and asks why she called her. The sister declares that she failed to cope with the role of queen, and now Catherine must become a worthy replacement on the throne. The girl asks whether her sister will believe it if she says that neither the king nor the throne interests her. The queen admits that from the very beginning, she was sure that Catherine was forced to get closer to the king by her father. The woman says that the father has long decided to gain power, and the daughters are just tools in his hands. The queen looks out the window and reasons that being hostages of a political game is the same as being in a dungeon, and nothing depends on them. Ekaterina asks in bewilderment why this is so, because she can tell everyone that she is not interested in this. The sister asks with a grin whether Catherine really thinks that the king was interested in her only because she is the second Rothschild. The girl looks at her sister in amazement. She didn't start developing the game from the very beginning, so is there really some kind of secret connected with the heroine? The queen reveals that Catherine is the one who has the power to influence the political power in the hands of the king. The plot mentioned that in the kingdom they believe in the God of light, and those who inherit his power are called saints, and it turns out that Catherine is a holy virgin. Tension has been growing between the king and the Holy Father for a long time. For many years, they have been trying to overthrow each other from their positions. The girl walks down the corridor and thinks that if she is a holy virgin, then this becomes a huge problem. The Holy Father calls out to the girl. He notices that the Duke's residence is quite far away and says that he will escort her. Catherine turns and asks the priest if he really doesn't want to rescue the queen from prison. The Holy Father replies that the girl must be joking because saving the queen has nothing to do with him. Catherine continues to insist and asks if the priest really wanted to save his sister, would he find a way or not? The Holy Father leans towards the girl's ear and asks if the queen told her something about him. The girl jumps back in fright and assures that the queen only asked to take care of Eve. Catherine explains her persistent interest by the fact that the priest always treated the princess with warmth. The Holy Father assures that he has no way to save the queen and says that it is time for him to return to the church. Looking at the priest's back, Catherine realizes that there was little chance, but at least she tried. Suddenly, the girl is pressed against the wall by Lucifer and threateningly asks what connects her with the Holy Father. The man furiously asks if she is also a priest's student. In the square, the herald reads that Julia Rothschild has entered into a conspiracy with dark forces, will be stripped of her title and status, and will be beheaded. Eva, in desperation, tries to break through to her mother, shouting that she is not to blame for anything. The princess is crying, lying on the ground, and insists that Catherine is to blame for everything. It was she who killed her mother. Rising, Eva vows that she will take revenge, and Catherine will pay for everything. The Holy Father asks with surprise what the princess is doing in the church at such a late hour. The princess states that the priest always treated her with great warmth, so she asks him to kill Catherine. The girl tries to convince Lucifer that nothing ever happened between her and the Holy Father. The demon declares that he does not believe the girl because everyone constantly lies and forgets about their vows. The man declares that he will believe only if Catherine entrusts her heart to him and becomes his follower. Leaning towards the girl's neck, Lucifer says that if she betrays him, he will eat her. The devil looks closely at Catherine and notices that she is not afraid of him, but for some reason her face is red. Catherine convinces the man that they are in the same boat and there is no reason to betray him. Suddenly, a loud ringing sound is heard, and the couple notices that a huge glass has been broken. A mercenary jumps into the room, but Lucifer instantly covers the girl. The Dark Knight makes a deft leap, and shouting that she must die, rushes at Catherine with a weapon in his hand. Suddenly, the mercenary stops abruptly and looks in amazement at the sacred light emanating from the girl. Lucifer does not have time to react, but the knight has already jumped out the window and escaped. Catherine assures that everything is fine with her, but she herself wonders who else, besides the princess, she could cross the road with. The Holy Father listens with surprise to the knight's story that a sacred light emanated from Catherine. The knight embarrassedly says that the light emanating from the girl was even brighter than the light of the Holy Father. The priest ponders the knight's words. The power of God is rare. Thanks to it, he was able to take the position of Holy Father. The man thinks that in their world, there cannot be those who own the true sacred light. This is only possible if the girl is a holy virgin. Knight Alice informs the Duke that, by order of the king, he entered into the disposal of Lady Catherine and brought 20 jewelry boxes as an engagement gift. The Duke tells the knight that as long as his daughter is under his protection, he can be calm. Catherine runs out of the house and shouts that she will not accept the gifts, and especially the knight Alice. The girl knows that the knight is loyal to the princess, and she will be a complete fool if she allows him to defend herself. The father angrily declares that his daughter is being disrespectful. She should be eternally grateful for such generous gifts. The Duke approaches Catherine and angrily says that she must remember her destiny and does not dare disobey him. Turning to Alice, the man says that the Rothschild family has no claims against the king, and the daughter is simply capricious. Alice kneels before Catherine and pronounces the words of an oath, swearing allegiance to her. The young man kisses the girl's hand and says that he expresses a desire to become a faithful knight for her. Catherine leans over to the guy and asks why he agreed to this if he is devoted to the princess with all his heart. Alice bows his head and explains that he is the king's knight and does as his lord commands. The girl sarcastically notes that the knight is very obedient and expresses the hope that this will continue to be the case. Catherine walks along the corridor and reflects that she is already fed up with this world, in which she is left with no choice in anything. A maid comes out to the girl and tells her that the main follower of the Holy Father is waiting for her. Catherine wonders in surprise why the main follower suddenly wanted to meet with her. The young man reports that the Holy Father invites the lady to study in the church and gives her a gift as an invitation. Alice overhears the conversation and realizes that Eve was right. This evil and vain woman is playing some obscure game with the Holy Father. The Duchess answers the young man that the status of a student is too honorable for such a simple girl, and she cannot accept this gift. The knight is surprised by the girl's words, but comes to the conclusion that she is just pretending. The follower explains in surprise that the girl has a rare opportunity. Can she really just refuse it? Realizing that Catherine is firm in her decision, the young man leaves, leaving the final comment that the girl may still regret her decision. The maid present during the conversation says that becoming a disciple of the church means receiving her recognition and asks how the Duchess could refuse such an opportunity. Catherine replies that she wants to live her life calmly, and there is no need for her to agree to something that presupposes some kind of plan and gives rise to attacks. Alice realizes with surprise that he did not expect such words from the girl. This does not at all look like villainy. The maid sincerely admires her mistress's intelligence. Such conclusions never even occurred to her. Ekaterina looks at the naive girl and thinks that if she wants to honestly reach the final, then she cannot use cunning. The Duchess says that if the maid wants to serve her, she will have to learn a lot. The girl happily replies that she will try her best. Catherine thinks that in this game she has too few people to rely on. The girl leaves with the thought that if the game continues like this, the fictional world will soon collapse, and she needs to return to her reality as soon as possible. Approaching the royal hall, Catherine decides that she needs to speed up the plot in order to hasten the death of her heroine. As far as the girl remembers, further in the plot, there should be a big hunt in which Catherine will raise her hand against the princess. In the same story, Prince Samuel from a neighboring kingdom will have to stand up for Eve. As the Duchess approaches the king, she sees Eve and wonders what the hell she's doing here. The ruler joyfully greets the bride and asks if she was pleased with his gifts. The girl bows her head and states that she has a small request to the king. She asks to organize a hunt. The man declares that this is just a wonderful idea, and it must happen that the princess asked him for the same thing. The Duchess looks at Eva in surprise. This girl is clearly up to something. The princess says with a grin that, according to rumors, her aunt is an excellent archer on horseback, and she hopes to learn the skill. After a short time, the preparations were completed, and all the nobles of the kingdom gathered for the big hunt. The second and third princesses do not leave Catherine a single step, showering her with flattering compliments. Elsa angrily remarks that the princess's mother recently passed away, and they are already fawning over Catherine. The girl resolutely declares that she will take it out on them instead of Eva, but the princess tries to restrain her friend. The girls discuss that this year the main trophy will be a porcelain medal. Elsa approaches with a laugh and says that for the queen's sake, the ruler once built an entire city, but for Catherine's sake, he allocated only a porcelain medal. The Duchess remembers that before her is Eva's best friend, who, due to the king's favor, became proud and impudent. The Duchess states that Princess Eva was also the initiator of the hunt, and does Elsa want to say that the king treats his daughter with disdain? Elsa reflects with surprise that before Ekaterina was never distinguished by her intelligence. Since when, I wonder, did she learn to answer like that? The girl attacks the Duchess, accusing her of killing her sister, to which Catherine demands to provide evidence. Staring intently at Elsa, the Duchess threateningly declares that false rumors should not be spread. The girl continues that since the topic has touched Eva, she will give her interlocutor advice not to repeat what everyone around is saying. Otherwise, you can quickly become a tool in someone else's hands. Eva intervenes in the conversation and says that Elsa is simply looking for justice and begs her aunt to have mercy on her. The princess drags her friend aside, but she resists and says that she is not to blame for anything. Suddenly, the girl returns and invites Catherine to compete in horse riding to find out which of them is better. The girl knows that the Duchess used to ride poorly and hopes that today she will disgrace herself in front of everyone. Elsa declares that she will cancel the challenge if her aunt apologizes to Eva on her knees, but Ekaterina calmly accepts the challenge. The girl looks at her interlocutor in confusion. She never expected her to agree. Lucifer asks why the girl agreed. The trophy doesn't look too worthwhile. Catherine replies that the enemy has raised his flag, and if she refuses, then everyone will think that she was scared. The devil presses against the girl, grabbing her hand and declares that you don't have to strain yourself, but just kill your rival. Catherine categorically states that it is impossible, thinking that Elsa is an important figure in the line that leads to the death of the heroine. The Duchess assures the demon that he has recently regained his strength and should not reveal himself, and murder will only bring unnecessary problems. The man looks soulfully into the girl's eyes and asks if she doesn't believe in his strength. Ekaterina calmly notes that it's more likely that the demon doesn't believe in himself, and in general, why did he think that she would lose? Lucifer leans towards the girl's face and whispers that in this case, Catherine must live up to his expectations. The competitors receive the command to get ready and drive out onto the road along which the race will take place. Lucifer notices that the girl's horse is not acting calmly and asks if she can definitely manage without his help. The Duchess excitedly replies that she likes to challenge herself. The signal sounds and the race begins. Observing that Ekaterina easily takes the lead, Elsa decides that she will not let her opponent win so easily. Elsa knows that to win, the horse must be calm and should not be allowed to be disturbed by anything. So having caught up with her rival, she plunges the dagger straight into her horse. The animal neighs loudly in pain and rears up. Ekaterina, not understanding what is happening, has difficulty staying in the saddle. Lucifer sees that the girl is in danger and in the blink of an eye moves through the portal to the scene of events. The magic rod, hidden behind the back of the Holy Father, is sensitive to the presence of dark magic. The Duchess shouts to Lucifer not to interfere. If he alarms the horse, then she will completely lose control over him. Ekaterina manages to pacify the animal, and in front of the amazed eyes of Elsa, she quickly rushes to the finish line. Lucifer watches the girl with pride and thinks that she is the most amazing person he has ever seen. Elsa admits her defeat and threateningly says that she is not afraid of Catherine, and if she dares to offend Eva again, she will not show herself too much. Looking at the girl leaving, the Duchess imperiously says that she did not give her permission to leave. Catherine declares that Elsa injured her horse, so they are not on the same page. She is not a kind aunt at all. When Elsa asks what else the Duchess wants, the girl replies that she is challenging Eva in horse riding. According to the plot, during the race, Catherine prevented Eva from winning. An angry horse rushed the princess into the forest. In the forest, Eve must be saved by a prince from a neighboring kingdom who will fall in love with the princess at first sight and for the rest of his life. Looking in the mirror, Catherine reflects that death at the hands of the prince is also one of the possible endings. We need to speed up the plot as soon as possible. Lucifer appears on the threshold with a gorgeous bouquet of roses and congratulates the girl on her victory. The demon reproachfully says that the next time Catherine is in danger, she should not try her best. The devil assures that he has enough strength to save the girl, and Catherine is surprised to notice that her heart begins to beat like crazy. As she leaves, the Duchess says that Lucifer needs to save his strength because he is her main trump card. The man comes too close again and asks if the girl is really worried about him. The demon leans towards the girl's face and declares that he needs to confess something. Alice is wandering through the forest when the princess calls to him from the bushes. The girl looks at the young man and asks who he is most loyal to. Without hesitation, the knight gets down on one knee and admits that he is loyal only to his mistress Eve. The princess hands Alice the bottle and says that she needs to make the Duchess's horse go berserk. The knight does not like this idea at all, but he obeys the girl's order and assures that he will do everything that is necessary. At the same time, Lucifer admits to Catherine that he really likes her. The demon invites the girl to forget her past life. If she is with him, then the devil will always be able to protect her. Catherine looks into the eyes of the devil. She feels bewitched. Her heart is still beating strongly. After being transferred to the game, the girl always seems to be walking on thin ice. There are enemies all around, and she cannot relax. When Catherine returns to her world, she still has to deal with the cheater and divide the rights to the game and property. Lucifer in the game was always next to the heroine and constantly protected her. The girl closes her eyes, trying to get everything out of her head, because this is just a game, not real life. Looking at the demon, the heroine thinks that the world in the game depends on the real world, and if something goes wrong in it, then the game will collapse, and then she will no longer be able to get out. The girl resolutely pushes Lucifer away and declares that he cannot like a villain like her. The man looks at his interlocutor in confusion and says that he really likes her. Catherine confidently declares that the devil just wants, with her help, to completely get rid of the oppression of dark forces. Lucifer grabs the girl in a rage and asks if she really wants to marry the king and become the one everyone despises. Catherine nods affirmatively. The devil throws the flowers and quickly leaves, wanting to finally not regret his decision. The Duchess shouts after her that the demon must follow the princess and save her in case of danger. Lucifer remains silent, and the girl declares that without this, he will not be able to fulfill his desire for liberation. The devil turns around and angrily replies that the girl need not worry. He will do everything that is necessary. Catherine sits on the floor and convinces herself that she did everything right. She must die at the hands of one of the main characters. But suddenly the girl realizes that she is in great pain and feels like her heart is broken. Alice brings the horse a bowl of water in which the potion given to him by Eve is dissolved. The knight realizes that an angry horse will easily throw off his rider and could trample him to death, and wonders if he is doing the right thing. Catherine enters the stable and asks Alice why he was staring at her horse. Hiding the bowl behind his back, the knight fearfully says that the mistress's horse was thirsty and he gave it water. The Duchess looks at the young man with suspicion. He is very devoted to the princess, so why did he suddenly decide to take care of her horse? Noticing the guy's fear, Catherine puts her hand on his cheek and asks why he was so excited. The young man abruptly removes his mistress's hand and speaks, and with embarrassment, asks her not to touch him so suddenly. The Duchess takes the knight by the chin and provocatively asks if only Eve has the right to do this. A flushed Alice wanders in front of the girl and says that he is not yet used to her, but following his oath, he will be forever devoted to her. Catherine asks if the knight can then swear that he did not do anything wrong with her horse. The guy looks away and swears. Eve stands behind the stable wall, overhears the conversation, and furiously comes to the conclusion that Alice has betrayed her. Suddenly, Catherine receives a message that the main character's anger has increased by 5% and is surprised. Looking at the knight, Catherine wonders whether the disagreement between him and Eve can lead her to the desired ending. The Holy Father reports that the winner of the competition will be the one who catches the largest amount of game in the allotted time. Suddenly, Eva interrupts the priest and says that she learned about the switching of horses. Alice tries to tell Eve that she has everything mixed up, but the princess pretends not to hear him. The princess approaches the Holy Father and asks him to help because she just wants her horse back. Looking at Catherine, Eve thinks that since Alice betrayed her, that means she will have to involve the priest. The girl says that her horse has a special mark. At the very bottom of its mane, it has a white scar. The princess asks the priest to check for the scar and see for himself. The man is convinced of Eva's words and tells Catherine to exchange horses with her. The Duchess asks the Holy Father if he is going to listen to her too, because the truth is established by the testimony of both sides. The girl resolutely declares that all horses are alike, and some scar cannot serve as proof. Suddenly it occurs to the heroine that she doesn't care about the outcome of the hunt. Even if Eva did something to the horse, she can just ride to the forest and get off it. Catherine looks at the position of the sun and realizes that soon Prince Samuel should appear at the place of their meeting with Eve. The Duchess reports that she has nothing to say, and everything is clear, and she agrees to do as the Holy Father orders. The girls mount their horses and start galloping. The hunt is declared open. After a short time, the princess's horse suddenly rears up. Eva barely manages to jump off the horse. The animal is completely enraged and behaves aggressively. Lucifer hurries to the fallen princess, extends his hand to her, and asks if she is safe. Recognizing Catherine's acquaintance, Eva asks with fear whether the Duchess sent him to kill him. The man calmly replies that if he had not scared off the horse, the princess would have died anyway, and adds that he and Catherine no longer have anything in common. The devil says that if everything is okay with Eve, then he has nothing to do here and is about to leave. But the girl calls out to him. The princess stares at Lucifer and asks if she can turn to him if she needs help. The man turns around and expresses hope that this will not happen. Looking after the devil, Eve thinks that he is calm and handsome and did not behave as rudely as in their first meeting. Catherine wanders through the forest and thinks that if Lucifer did not fail, then he should have already met Eve, and then the plot will take its course. Suddenly, a loud crash is heard, and a huge, angry beast rushes from the bushes straight towards the girl. At this moment, the Duchess's horse bucks and runs away, depriving her of the chance to escape. Realizing that she has no other choice, the girl takes out her bow and decides to fight. The beast rushes at Catherine, and in one sharp movement, she shoots an arrow straight into his chest. The beast calmly pulls out an arrow from its thick fur, and the Duchess understands that she cannot defeat him with just a bow. Catherine is disappointed and thinks that having learned about such a death, people will simply burst with laughter. Suddenly, someone rushes with a sword at the beast and, in defense, knocks the girl down. The young man looks at Catherine and wonders if everything is all right with the beautiful lady. The young man takes the Duchess by the hand and introduces himself as the prince from the Snowy Kingdom, Samuel Elva. The Duchess looks at the young man in bewilderment and realizes that she again accidentally stole the guy from the princess. The prince, without letting go of his hand, inquires about the name of the beautiful and brave girl. Catherine wonders with bewilderment how she can now go through the storyline where the prince saves the princess and falls in love with her. Suddenly, Lucifer appears right in front of the young people and asks in a scary voice what they are doing. The girl looks at the demon in fright, not understanding what he is doing here, and is finally convinced that everything is not going according to the script. Lucifer does not calm down and angrily asks what kind of man is kissing the Duchess's hands. Losing her temper, Catherine shouts that this is the etiquette, and it's time to stop taking everything ambiguously. The girl looks at the enraged demon, and seeing the magical fire, realizes that he is going to use force. Samuel watches what is happening in bewilderment, and notes that it is inappropriate to talk to a beautiful lady like that. Having not come up with anything better, the Duchess points to the side and shouts that the terrible beast has returned. While Samuel is distracted, Catherine grabs Lucifer and runs away. Realizing that he had been tricked, the prince shouts after him that he never knew the name of the beautiful stranger. Turning around, the girl says that if they meet again, he will have a chance to recognize him. In the forest, Lucifer pins Catherine against a tree and angrily declares that he is just a pawn for her to push around. The girl wearily replies that the demon misunderstood everything, and now she will explain everything to him. The devil soulfully asks if the Duchess really dislikes him that much. Suddenly the thought occurs to the man that Catherine doesn't like him because he is not human. The Duchess looks at the demon in amazement and sees that he begins to cry. The girl realizes that she has brought the demon with the most unbreakable heart in the game to tears, and comes to the conclusion that she is really doing something wrong. Catherine shakes her head forcefully and decides that she needs to follow the plot. Everyone else is just characters in the game. The girl asks the embarrassed Lucifer if he remembers their agreement. The Duchess puts her hand on the devil's cheek and says that she doesn't need love, she just needs to survive. The man asks if this means that the girl gets married not because she loves, but because it is necessary for her goals. Pointing his finger at Catherine's chest, Lucifer says that he does not know about her plans, but in this place she is empty. Suddenly, a black beam of magic hits the Duchess, to which she asks in surprise what the demon is up to. Lucifer declares that despite the agreement, they can love each other and kisses the girl's lips. The man says that he will wait for the day when Catherine loves him, and then the black lotus will bloom in her heart. The demon, without looking up, looks at the Duchess and says that as soon as this day comes, he will pick the flower. Lucifer flies away, and Catherine shouts after him that he never learned how to get rid of the oppression of dark forces. Turning around, the devil says that he just needs to devour the heart of the Holy Virgin, and then he will become the same. The girl screams that she can help the devil find this very heart. Walking through the forest, Eve reflects that Catherine won Alice over to her side so that the princess would believe that she was betrayed, and now she is wounded and cannot shoot game. Coming out from behind the bushes, the princess suddenly sees the carcass of a huge beast and a man standing next to her. Approaching the stranger, Eva embarrassedly asks if he could give her this beast. The princess assures that she will repay the young man in full and introduces herself as Eva Christian. The prince easily agrees and asks why the girl needs such a carcass. Eva sheepishly replies that she needs to defeat someone. The princess briefly tells her story and adds that due to the madness of her horse, she is unable to hunt. The girl convinces the young man that she absolutely cannot lose to the vile scoundrel. Samuel clarifies whether he understood correctly that the princess wants to pass off the beast as her prey and win. Eva says that cheating, of course, is not good, but if the guy doesn't tell anyone about it, then she will pay him even more. The prince understands the girl's desire for revenge and therefore offers to help her deliver the loot to the camp. The princess returns to the amazed looks of the people and joyfully points to her prey. The girl comes to greet her father, who notices with alarm that the girl has been injured. Eva says that the forest is very dangerous and she injured herself through negligence, but thanks to her father's training, she was able to defeat the wild beast. The father is proud of his daughter and asks the name of the young man who helped her bring the loot. The young man respectfully introduces himself and says that he came from a neighboring kingdom to study and travel. The king joyfully asks if Samuel is King Edward's son, to which the young man nods in the affirmative. Eva turns to the guy in amazement. She could not even think that he was a prince. The king is glad to give the prince a worthy welcome and announces that since Eve has returned, he closes the hunt and announces the winner. The lord turns to Catherine and asks if she accepts her defeat. Samuel turns to Eve and loudly asks if this is the mean aunt the girl was talking about. The king furiously asks how the young man dares to call his future wife vile. The princess turns around in fear, not understanding how the prince could so vilely share what she told him in anger. Samuel tells the king that these are not his words, and it would be better for him to ask the princess about everything. The young man offers to find out from Eva where she got her loot, thinking that, unlike her, the vile aunt did not do this. Eve cannot hide her contempt. The pathetic prince betrayed her so vilely. Suddenly, Catherine declares that the one who brought the beast is the breadwinner, and she honestly admits her defeat. Samuel replies that Catherine is right, and in this case, the spoils really belong to the princess. The Duchess looks at the prince, but she does not like his look at all. The girl thinks in despair that everything is falling apart. She urgently needs to correct the plot. Ekaterina frantically tries to remember what happened next in the plot of the game. The Duchess turns to the king and suggests holding a ball to properly welcome the guest. At the ball, the king and Duchess Catherine warmly welcome the prince. Samuel bows and says that he is glad to welcome the beautiful lady. The princess is angry that despite winning the hunt, all attention is focused on her aunt. The girl approaches Catherine and offers to drink wine with her as a sign of mutual respect. The Duchess sees that the princess's bitterness is at 60% and hopes that a turning point will soon come. The girl turns to Alice, who is holding a tray with a glass of wine. A moment later, what the Duchess was waiting for happens. Turning awkwardly, the knight knocks over a glass of wine on the girl's dress. Catherine is in anticipation. If everything goes according to plan, the death of the main villain will soon come. To speed up the plot and show off her mark at the ball, the girl spoiled her dress a little. Catherine saw that Alice was secretly spying on her and would certainly report everything to the princess. As soon as the young man approaches, the girl asks to give the dress to Eva as a gift. Alice passionately says that he does not believe in the mistress's meanness. The princess will soon become her daughter, and he does not understand how he can do this to her. Catherine coldly replies that if the young man considers her evil, then her actions must be evil, and if the guy does not hand over the dress, he will regret it. Turning away, the Duchess hopes that after her speech, the knight should do everything right and continue the story thread. Eve, having listened to Alice's story, asks in bewilderment if Catherine really said so. The knight declares that the princess should under no circumstances wear this dress, especially since the prince will be at the ball. Eva is upset and notices that her aunt is mocking her because no one is protecting her and only faithful Alice can help her. The princess says that at the ball, she will offer the Duchess a drink, and the knight should throw wine on her, and then the girl will invite her aunt to change into her own dress. The knight is perplexed why he can't just leave the dress in the room, but Eve confidently says that if Alice doesn't help her, then Catherine will deal with her in the same way as with her mother. It occurs to the young man that all the time he has seen only how the princess is trying to harm the Duchess. But despite the fact that everyone blames her, Catherine always remains calm and unperturbed. But still, the guy could not disobey the princess. He looks upset at Catherine's dress and asks for forgiveness. Eva insidiously notices that the aunt has no spare dresses in the castle and reproaches the knight for inattention. The princess happily hands the Duchess the dress and says that she will be happy to give her her gift. Ekaterina accepts the dress with a smile and thanks the girl for her attentiveness. The Duchess quietly tells Lucifer that the Holy Maiden is present at the ball. The man needs to get lost in the crowd and look for her. Eva quietly asks the young man if he understood everything and, if successful, promises to reward him. Catherine sees that a certain young man is heading towards her and understands that everything is going according to the script. He must invite her to dance. But suddenly, Samuel is ahead of the young man and asks the Duchess for permission to invite her to dance. Catherine is at a loss. On the one hand, she cannot refuse the prince, but on the other, this will again violate the script. In the end, the girl decides that it doesn't really matter who she dances with and graciously agrees. During the dance, a crash is heard, and the dress prepared by the Duchess falls apart, revealing the back with the mark. Catherine realizes with annoyance that the dress is completely out of place. To the girl's surprise, Lucifer, an ardent opponent of holy power, hesitated. Samuel takes off his cloak and quickly places it over the girl's shoulders, hiding the mark. The king runs up and attacks Eva, asking why the Duchess's dress came apart, but the girl says that it was her aunt who gave it to her. Samuel says that if the Duchess gave the dress, then there was nothing wrong with it, but then someone secretly altered it. The second princess rushes to Catherine's defense, convincing her that she is very kind, but everyone constantly misunderstands everything and attacks the lady. The king turns sharply to Eve and asks if she has anything to say. Catherine is surprised to notice that a lot of people who previously spoke badly about her came to her defense. Eve insists that she is incapable of doing anything wrong and does not understand why the prince constantly attacks her. The princess suggests asking Alice. He is his aunt's knight and will not hide the truth. The lord turns to the knight and orders him to tell everything as it really happened. Alice falls to his knee and says that the princess told him to spill a glass of wine on Madame Catherine's dress. Both girls open their mouths in amazement, not understanding why the knight decided to tell everything. Eve tries to justify herself by saying that Alice is lying, but the king sharply orders her to shut up. The father orders the guards to take his daughter away and tells her that until the girl realizes her guilt, she will not receive a penny. Catherine rushes to the man and says that the princess did not wish her harm. Most likely, he just misunderstood something. The king admits that he missed out on raising his daughter and is embarrassed that his bride is being groundlessly accused. The man takes the girl to change clothes, and she reflects on the fact that in the end, the faithful prince betrayed the princess, and the king's attitude towards her changed noticeably. In the corridor, the king attacks the bride and says that she should be more careful and should not wear clothes that are too revealing. Catherine leaves, and the king orders the guard to kill anyone who lets slip about what happened and about the Holy Virgin. Having heard the conversation, Catherine realizes with fear that if earlier the ruler treated her very indifferently, now he strives to control her in everything. Samuel knocks on the door of the room and asks if Madame Catherine is there. The Duchess asks why the prince came. The young man reports that the ball is over, and he still did not have time to invite the lady to a meeting dedicated to training, which will take place in a few days. In the story, Catherine's reputation was damaged due to her eternal intrigues, and the love of Samuel and the princess blossomed. The girl recalls that Catherine, having not received an invitation to the meeting, arrived there without permission to ruin everything. But nothing worked out for the girl, and the love of the prince and princess became even stronger. Ekaterina understands that she needs to find a way out of the game at any cost, so she needs to complete the story at any cost. Having finished with the toilet, the Duchess leaves the room and says that she will definitely be at the meeting. Suddenly, the girl feels empowered. After all, she is the creator of this game, and any deviations in the plot should not scare her. The Holy Father listens with interest about what happened at the ball. A follower reports that many high-ranking guests saw this, but most of them do not know the meaning of the mark. The priest notes that those who know about the mark probably understood who Catherine is. The Holy Father releases the young man and notes that it is time to visit the future queen. Catherine gives the maid a letter and punishes that the princess must not find out about the sender. The Holy Father greets the Duchess and asks for forgiveness for disturbing her at such a late hour. The man admits that his words will sound rather strange, but still he asks the girl to refuse the wedding. The priest says that he is aware of the Duchess's father's request, but he himself occupies a very high position and in any case will be able to ensure the girl's safety. Touching Catherine's face, The Holy Father says that in return for what he can offer, he has a small request. Running his finger over Catherine's lips, the priest says that he is asking her for a very tiny reward. The Duchess suddenly asks why the Holy Father thought that she does not love the king. But even if this is true, then why should she cancel the wedding? The man replies that no one but him can provide the protection of the Holy Virgin. The Holy Father declares that now the girl is a real treasure that everyone would like to receive, so even the king is not able to provide her protection. Catherine thanks the priest for the offer, but admits that she cannot make a decision right away. She needs to think. The man notices that perhaps he was too persistent and asks the girl to think about his words. Leaving the room, the Holy Father orders the follower not to wait, but to finish off Madame Catherine. The young man, in fear, says that she is a holy virgin, but the priest replies that it no longer matters. The Holy Father coldly reports that since the Duchess does not want to serve him, then there is no need to leave her alive. Pressed against the wall, Catherine in despair thinks that she has really become bait, since even the Holy Father is interested in her. Annoyed, the girl thinks that she just wanted to complete the game, but every day the plot becomes more and more confusing. Suddenly, the girl feels someone's presence and asks in fear what Lucifer is doing here. Realizing that most likely the demon heard everything, the Duchess asks how long he has been standing here, to which he replies that it's enough. Catherine tries to explain that she has nothing in common with the Holy Father. Lucifer says that the pretender himself pestered the girl and is interested in whether he only touched her face. The man admits that as soon as he saw another man touching the girl, he felt so sad that he didn't even have the strength to breathe. Lucifer declares that the surest solution to this problem will be to kill everyone who dares to touch the Duchess, and then she will become his. Catherine doesn't have time to come to her senses when Lucifer approaches her and passionately kisses her on the lips. Suddenly, a strong ringing is heard in the girl's ear, and she presses her hand to it in fear. Lucifer gently touches the girl and asks her not to worry. It's just a spell working. The demon explains that if there is a large distance between them and he stops feeling the Duchess, he will lose control and kill all the men who bother her. The devil gets down on one knee and asks Catherine to never leave him and always be by his side. The girl says that she will agree if he does not kill the Holy Father, and now she has a lot to do. Lucifer's eyes light up with devilish fire, and he decides that he will deal with the Holy Father later. A maid enters the princess's chambers and reports that she was given a letter. While Eva is reading, the maid asks her to be careful because there is no information about the sender. The princess mysteriously replies that it doesn't matter. The important thing is that the sender also wants to get rid of Catherine. Catherine is getting ready to go, but Alice says that it is better for her to stay. The young man says that last night the princess met with a bunch of aristocrats to figure out how to annoy her aunt at the upcoming meeting. The knight says that if the Duchess leaves, something terrible might happen to her. The girl asks how the guy knows this, to which he replies that a former service comrade told him. Catherine cannot understand why, after the ball, Alice repeatedly betrays the princess whom he served faithfully. The girl slaps the guy on the chest and says that a villain like her is not afraid of any intrigues. Catherine notices that the young man seems to be the princess's faithful knight. Alice replies that he simply cannot break the knight's code. The young man admits that the Duchess is not a villain at all. She is simply forced to defend herself in unkind ways. The knight declares that even if he is not the strongest, but under his protection, the girl has no need to pretend to be a villain. Realizing that Catherine will go anyway, the knight promises to make every effort to protect her. Noticing that the Duchess has arrived, Samuel abandons his interlocutor and runs to meet her. The girl greets the prince and asks for forgiveness for being late. Eva grinningly tells the young man that after this meeting, things will go badly for him if he does not unite with her. The princess assures the guy that today they have a great opportunity to disgrace Catherine in front of everyone. The young people notice how the prince escorts the Duchess to the seats prepared for the guests close to the king. The young man approaches the prince and notices that they have all arrived for training and does not understand why the lady, whose assessment of governing the country is very low, is sitting in the best places. Elsa notices that Catherine will not even understand how to make the state stronger. The girl continues that the princess, out of the kindness of her heart, will answer all questions instead of the villain. Samuel asks in surprise whether the princess knows the answer to the question of how to make the state stronger. Eva understands that everything in the letter was true, and the prince came to find out how to strengthen the state. The princess confidently replies that it is necessary to give citizens the opportunity to improve their situation. If they become better off, then the state will become stronger. Eva seriously says that the head of state cannot simply belong to the upper class. It is their duty to make the lives of ordinary citizens better. Samuel notes with approval that he had not thought about how understanding the princess was about this problem. Ekaterina happily understands that there has been a shift in the relationships of young people. The young man turns to the Duchess and asks what her opinion is on this matter. Deciding that it would be best to disagree with the princess, the girl decisively declares that it is very difficult to give ordinary citizens the opportunity to get rich. The prince thoughtfully says that even if people have more opportunities, it is not a fact that they will be able to use them correctly. Samuel states that the Duchess's remarks completely refute the princess's point of view. Eve turns to the young man and reminds him of her assignment. The young man approaches the Duchess and says that the girl's teacher clearly underestimated her, and the guy also heard that she had low grades in horse riding. Elsa, with a grin, invites Catherine to prove herself. Otherwise, they have already begun to suspect the teachers of incompetence. Eva innocently declares that this is a bad idea in case Aunt can't handle the horse and shows herself badly in front of everyone. Everyone looks at the Duchess, and she realizes that she has fallen into a typical trap. Alice steps forward and declares that the lady is not feeling well, and now is not the time for riding. The young man declares that he, as a knight, will compete with the princess instead of the Duchess. Samuel offers himself as a partner, which would be very fair, and offers to choose swords. The young men go out into the garden and draw their swords, preparing for a fight. Watching the fight, Catherine thinks that in the game, Alice was made much stronger than ordinary people. But if you compare the young man with all the other characters, he is the weakest of all. The knight approaches the Duchess and says with shame that he has disgraced her with his defeat. Samuel approaches the girl and asks her to teach the young man the correct political views. The girl looks at the evil Eve and understands that again her plan failed, and everything turned out exactly the opposite. The Duchess is forced to refuse. Her knight is wounded, and she considers it necessary to treat him. The disappointed prince apologizes to the remaining guests and says that he needs to go urgently, and the meeting is over. Eva turns to the young man and declares that the prince has no business. He simply doesn't care about them. The princess irritably thinks that in the prince's thoughts there is only Catherine, and everything the girl does is in vain. Catherine tells Alice to make sure that all things are collected. It's time for them to hit the road. The prince approaches the girl and sadly asks if Madame Catherine is already leaving. The Duchess replies that she really has to go. She's already been too late. The young man gives the girl a brooch and says that this is a symbol of his state. If the girl is in trouble, she can always turn to his people. The prince says soulfully that he has been to many places, but he could not even think that he would ever meet her. Samuel kisses the girl's hand and hopes that one day he will have the chance to bring her to his kingdom. Catherine is amazed to realize that the young man has just actually confessed his feelings to her. The Duchess coldly replies that the prince's visit must be due to a more serious purpose. The girl says that as far as she knows, power in the northern kingdom has been seized by other princes, and Samuel has no reason to even think about taking the throne. Catherine bows to the young man and asks him to forgive her for his rudeness. Straightening up, the girl declares that she is the future queen, so sometimes she can take liberties. As usual, Eva hides around the corner and overhears the conversation between her aunt and the prince. Samuel changes his face and orders the guard to keep an eye on Catherine and find out everything possible about her. Sitting in the carriage, the Duchess understands that she had to say something that would confuse the prince, but then he will definitely thank her. The girl reflects that she will have to abandon the storyline with the prince, but the line with Lucifer is also lost. With bewilderment, Catherine reflects that Alice was her last hope. Suddenly, Eva approaches the carriage and asks permission to go with her aunt because her carriage has broken down. Ekaterina recalls that according to the plot of the game, it was in the carriage that the heroines clarified all the misunderstandings, and together they need to confront external troubles. The Duchess tells the princess that she would be happy to spend time with her on the road. Catherine begins the conversation by saying that she never wanted to hurt the princess. Eva replies that she knows about this. They are one family, and her aunt cannot wish her harm. The girl squeezes the Duchess's hand and asks if her aunt can forgive her. Ekaterina is surprised that the main character has wised up so quickly and takes the necessary phrases right off her tongue. Eva thinks that she needs to behave more carefully so that her aunt does not understand the princess's true intentions. Suddenly, the carriage stops and the girls hear loud screams. Before leaving, Eve orders the knight to pretend to be a thug and make an attempt on Catherine's life. The princess understands that the knight is no match for Alice, so he only needs to pretend. Catherine looks out of the carriage window and asks what is happening. Suddenly, the door opens and a man with a hidden face appears before the girls. Eva feigns fear and screams that they were attacked by a thug. The mercenary pulls a dagger from his belt and points it directly at Catherine. The princess, according to her plan, nobly covers her aunt, but the knife plunges into her stomach. The girl looks at the blood in amazement and realizes that they were not attacked by the one she persuaded. Jumping out of the carriage, the mercenary jumps onto the roof, and Alice immediately runs up to him. Jumping off the roof, the criminal looks back at the girls and mutters that the girl is useless anyway. The knight tries to catch up with the mercenary and cuts off part of his sleeve with his sword. On his bare shoulder, Alice is amazed to see a rather remarkable tattoo. The young man remembers how a man with the same tattoo strangled his father. Sitting in the thickets of grass, the mother covered her son's mouth, but he watched in horror as his father was killed. Alice looks at the mercenary with rage and says that he is the same devil. The man understands, covers the mark with his hand, but understands that he is recognized. Alice orders all knights to capture the killer and promises a generous reward. Catherine lays the princess on the floor of the carriage and says that she will call for help. Eve notices the knight in the window whom she persuaded and realizes that the perfect moment has come. The guy tries to justify himself, but the princess says that there is no time and orders him to kill the Duchess as soon as possible. The knight quickly overtakes Catherine and, taking out his sword, pierces her through. At the same moment, Lucifer appears and picks up the falling girl. The demon turns in anger and notices the princess peeking out in the carriage. The devil instantly grabs the girl by the neck and shouts that it was she who killed the Duchess. Returning to the carriage, Alice is amazed to see Catherine lying on the ground and the demon that attacked the princess. The young man immediately draws his sword and runs to Lucifer, ordering him to let Eve go. The devil angrily says that no one has the right to tell him, and the guy's sword falls into small pieces. With the help of magic, Lucifer lifts the young people into the air and declares that they and Catherine will go to the next world. Alice understands that the demon is too strong. The guy has no strength at all to resist. Catherine tries with her last strength to stop Lucifer, saying that it was not they who attacked her. The devil falls to his knees in front of the girl, realizing that he can do nothing to help her. Lucifer reflects that the Duchess cannot just disappear. Their souls are connected by a spell, and now she should be in her home. Instantly opening the portal, the devil picks up the girl in his arms and quickly disappears. Catherine sits up on the bed, and Lucifer cannot believe that she is alive. The girl grabs the demon by the shoulders and assures him that it was not the princess who killed her. Lucifer does not listen to the Duchess. He leans on her and tries to kiss her, but she stubbornly asks him to listen to her. Suddenly, the devil bursts into tears and asks Catherine not to scare him like that again. Man, not embarrassed by his tears, he says that he cannot imagine his life without her. Pressing the girl to the bed, Lucifer assures that the girl owes neither the king nor the princess anything. Looking at the demon, the Duchess reasons that instead of looking for the right ending, it seems to her that staying in the game forever is not a bad option either. Opening the carriage door, Alice asks the princess for forgiveness for failing to protect her. The guy bows his head and says that he will accept any punishment from the king. Eve realizes with irritation that the knight is more worried not about her injury, but about Catherine's death. The girl extends her hand to the knight and tells him to carry her inside in his arms. Confused, Alice bows to the princess and says that it would be wrong because he has feelings for a certain girl. The amazed Eve demands that the knight immediately tell him which girl he is talking about. The young man sadly says that the girl's name no longer matters because she is no longer there. Alice orders the knight standing nearby to escort the princess to her chambers. Eva asks in surprise where the guy is in such a hurry. He answers that he needs to find Catherine's body. Turning around, the knight says that he must find the body no matter what. He must not allow the dirty demon to discredit her. The young man heads towards the cart and, out of habit, puts his hand on his sword, but is surprised to notice that it is not there. The knight fearfully asks the princess what he should do now because he killed the future queen. Eve thoughtfully says that Catherine's body disappeared along with the demon, which means that anyone will think that he was the one who killed her. Alice hears the princess's words with rage, standing behind the slightly open door. The young man understands that it was the princess who planned everything so carefully. The girl attacks the knight and warns that if he opens his mouth, his whole family will have a hard time. Suddenly, the princess hears footsteps approaching and fearfully asks who came there. A disappointed Alice slowly approaches Eve. The girl asks in surprise what he is doing here. The princess looks thoughtfully at the young man and wonders if he heard everything. The knight confirms that he heard every word and could not think that the princess had become a murderer. The young man twists the knight, declaring that he will not let any criminal escape who dares to touch Catherine. Eva realizes with horror that she must stop Alice by any means possible because her father loves her aunt so much. The girl reminds the knight that they grew up together and he cannot want the evil scoundrel to kill her. The knight notices that before the princess was the kindest and taught him to take responsibility for his mistakes, how can she now say such terrible things? Eva angrily says that she was kind until Catherine killed her mother. If the girl does not become tough, she will end up the same way. The girl tells the young man not to forget that it was she who took him from the mountain of corpses and gave him a future. Eve wonders if Alice will really allow her savior to die because of Catherine. The knight angrily replies that he will not say a word to the king, but this will be the last service he will render to Eve. Alice turns around and leaves saying that he doesn't owe the princess anything else. The king sits in an embrace with a girl and indifferently accepts the news that Catherine is dead. The man sighs and says that it's a pity, and now there's one less tool in the fight against the Holy Father. The girl suggests that the king blame the priest for this incident because it was he who trained the knight Alice. The man admits it's a great idea, then pushes the girl to the floor and orders the guards to kill her. The girl clings to the ruler in horror, not understanding why he is doing this to her. The king declares that the girl is too noisy and orders the knight to carry out the order. Turning around, the man with a grin orders his beloved daughter Eva to be brought to him. The princess approaches her father and anxiously asks why her father wanted to see her so urgently. The man replies that he just wanted to know how exactly Catherine's murder happened. Eva, horrified, says that she was wounded, fainted, and does not remember what happened next. The king begins to shout that his daughter should remember how Knight Alice deliberately led the knights away so that it would be easier for the demon to kill Catherine. Having calmed down, the father says that he will call Alice and interrogate him to find out the true cause of the Duchess's death. The Holy Father angrily says that for 30 years they managed to hide their organization, and the follower allowed Alice to find out everything. The young man sadly says that he is very sorry and asks to be locked in a dungeon for 10 days. The Holy Father says that this is not a punishment and orders the knight to go to prison and perform a ritual of self-purification. The priest thinks irritably that he wanted to use Alice for his own purposes, but now he has to get rid of him. Eva finds no place for herself in her chambers. The nasty Catherine creates problems for the girl even after death. The princess says that if this continues, her father will sentence her to death, just like her mother, and wonders who can help her. Behind the girl, the voice of the Holy Father is heard, promising to help the princess. The priest puts his hand on Eve's head and says that he will solve the problem if the princess will act together with him.